Water insecurity is a complex issue, and although there is considerable knowledge of how to incorporate appropriate management measures and strategies into water resources management at provincial and river basin levels to achieve water security, few actions effectively achieve such ambitions on the ground. The Mekong River Basin is one of the world's longest and most biodiverse river basins. The Mekong flows through 6 countries including China, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Its basin covers an area of 759,000 square kilometers and is home to an estimated population of 65 million people. The Mekong is the world's 10th largest river by volume of water transported in a year. The Mekong is currently facing a number of water security issues as a result of flow control projects such as hydropower and agricultural developments. Besides human factors, the Mekong River Basin is greatly affected by climate change with increasing drought frequency in recent years. Areas far from the mainstream of the Mekong River are faced with a lack of clean water for domestic use, including people who live in mountainous regions such as Chiang and Samanakhet. In addition, there is increasing saline water intrusion into the Mekong Delta, which impact fresh water supplies. The project title is Integrated Assessment of Domestic Water Accessibility for Vulnerable Communities in the Lower Mekong Basins. It is a Stockholm Environment Institute funded project under the Sustainable Mekong Research Network. The SummerNet is an initiative for research and policy engagement, bringing together research partners working on sustainable development in the countries of the Mekong region. The research is in alignment with the stated mission of SummerNet 4, which assesses the significance of improved policies and practices in addressing water insecurity challenges through collaborative research of Lower Mekong Basin countries, namely Laos, Thailand, and Vietnam. The research aims to explore the current and potential future situation of water insecurity of vulnerable and marginalized groups in Lower Mekong countries. The main factors affecting domestic water accessibilities of VNM groups and potential actions that may be taken to reduce domestic water insecurity for VNM groups. The specific goal is to reduce water insecurity for vulnerable groups in the Lower Mekong Basin through integrated assessments of domestic water accessibility applying a Water Poverty Index, which called WPI. 3 provinces which critical domestic water issues were selected as the research areas of this project, including Bến Tre, Chiang Rai, and Samanakhet. The project considers domestic water-related issues and how to enhance the clear water accessibility for marginal and vulnerable groups with the key activity. 1. Identify the VNM groups and important domestic water-related issues and causes. 2. Identify the main factors of domestic water insecurity issues based on secondary data, field observation, and stakeholder engagements. 3. Conducting integrated assessment of domestic water accessibility for VNM group in select pilot districts by applying Water Poverty Index. Develop infrastructure Investment, priorities, and policy brief for reducing domestic water insecurity for VNN groups in Lower Mekong River Basin. 5. Organizing local workshops, conferences for proposing the water supply investment, priority, and policy measures to local authorities, decision makers, water supply providers, and residents. The research results show that percentage of households that can access water tap in Bến Tre, Chiang Rai, Savanakhet is 63%, 80%, and 54% respectively. Some components of water poverty index of the communities in the selected district, Chiang Phong, Thanh Phú, and Quang Kien, Chiang Sen, Chiang Khong, are very low, a value under 30%, suggesting that the communities are very vulnerable to insufficient domestic water supply. The key issue of water accessibilities in the research areas are insufficient tap water for local communities, especially vulnerable groups in the research areas, poor domestic water quality for vulnerable people, especially the people with very low or no income.
แต่เมื่อก่อนกะทั้งเมืองหลัดเฮาก็ยังบ่ทันได้เข้ามาถึงทางท้องถิ่นนี่นะเป็นว่าอยู่เขตนี้เขาก็ดำรงชีวิตแบบธรรมชาติเนาะธรรมชาติอหลีใส่น้ำอยู่ตามสายห้วยสายหองแล้วก็เช่นฤดูฝนเขาก็ใส่น้ำฝนหันมาได้ดำรงชีวิตครอบครัวของเขาเจ้าหัน
There is general insufficiency of policies and political will to provide water supply systems to the poorest people with very low or no income in all three provinces. Domestic water at some districts is poor quality and does not meet standards due to limitations of water treatment technology in the regions. Insufficient investment budgets for water supply infrastructure. The investment cost of water supply systems for small communities in remote regions is relatively high. In addition, of the volume of domestic water supply is insufficient. Local governments should consider policy to promote the private sector in developing water supply infrastructure in the remote regions. Policy makers or policy decision makers do not have sufficient information about current and future projected water quality and quantity in this area.
Vì cái phần mà nước ở đây thì đang khai thác là khai thác nước mặn và nó phụ thuộc vào nguồn nước hiện có, người dân cũng phải mua nước thêm.
Vấn đề có căn hai là nguồn vốn, cái thứ ba là vấn đề hạ tầng rồi cái thứ tư là người dân họ không có ở tập trung.
Không có thì nhà máy thì nói thì đủ nước sạch nhưng mà cái kinh phí mà để kéo ống nói thì không có kinh phí để kéo ống nói.
Groundwater extraction in Chiang Rai requires high technology and cost of well drilling and pumping, so most the poor people do not able to access groundwater in the areas. In Chiang Rai, the conflict of water use occurs between upstream and downstream communities, water providers and local communities among sub-district administration officers. Currently, the conflicts are still happening as the provincial government cannot determine solutions. In Chiang Rai, most of VNN people are poor and some marginalized people group do not have ID cards to access government services. The vulnerable and marginalized people are faced with insecurity domestic water in households, especially in dry season. In Chiang Phong district, most of the poor households reported that they directly drink the water from natural sources and rarely filtered or boiled water for drinking. Saltwater intrusion heavily affect the water quality during dry season in Bến Tre province about 6 to 7 months per year. The research recommend that the first priority in Bến Tre, Chiang Rai, Savannakhet province in the sunny or dry season is to store rainwater. Donors and government could support the construction of cement or plastic tanks to store the rainwater with the minimum volume of tanks being at least 1 cubic meters. Reverse osmosis systems are necessary in Bến Tre province as they are useful in terms of providing drinking water for local communities in the critical situation of saltwater institutions. Policy deficiencies for providing water supply system for the poorest people without or very low income in the poor communities such as disabled residents, those with chronic diseases, orphans, elderly people, etc., should be urgently addressed. There is a need to change the legal working mechanisms for donors. Local people and authorities are more easily receive funds and support from non-government organizations, especially in the field of water supply and sanitation. Increasing investment for water supply infrastructure, water distribution for poor and vulnerable communities reduces absolute poverty, increases livelihood options, and reduces water use conflict, thus benefiting the community at large. Sustainable long-term water-related financing options should be explored in the more depth. Finally, the project study team expected that the vulnerable and marginalized groups in Lower Mekong River Basin with limited domestic water accessibility will be assisted in providing more water throughout the sunny season. Water is the most important factor for survival, and it is hoped that the Mekong countries will progress toward sustainable development without leaving anyone behind, a core ambition of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.